France and Georgia this weekend. I think it's a Sunday game for this one. Georgia and France. And if I'm not mistaken, they've only ever played once. So it's a good game to be watching. You don't get to see France and Georgia play very often. I do correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I could only find one game in their history. But we'll go through the squads, some of the stats, predictions, and you guys can let me know your thoughts on how this one is going to go. So, yeah, if I'm not mistaken, 2007, 64 points to 7 in France's favour, and that's the last time these guys have met. But, yeah, it just seems bizarre, doesn't it? There are a few teams like that you would think play each other more because of their geographic locations, but that don't actually play each other that much. So, apparently France and Georgia is one of those. But yeah, so based on the recent history, it's been all France, but 2007 feels anything but recent. We'll start with the French side. Fabien Galtier has kind of picked a squad which is a bit changed, but not what you would call wholesale changes by any means. Some guys from the bench get starts, some guys who started are back on the bench, and there's a couple of guys who are legit kind of added to the squad. One of those is Antoine, the big tight head prop. He's alongside Marchand and Baille this week, so there's no Hawas. I wonder if the French are looking for a big old scrum battle against the Georgians. It's an area where the Georgians are stereotypically pretty powerful. But that being said, they've maybe depowered their scrum a little bit in the second row with Woki moving into the second row. I've never seen him play as a lock. He may well play as a lock that I'm not aware of, but I know he runs the line out. So Woki is there at 4, and Taofifenua, who's a bit of a big unit, he's there at 5. So it's an all-new second row and a new tight head prop amongst your tight 5. The back row, Jelonch moves from 8 to 6. It's not a huge difference for him. I think we've seen him play both. Makalou moves from the bench to 7, and then Alldritt gets a start at number 8. So that's what I'm talking about, the guys kind of moving around without kind of wholesale changes. Where it's a bit more stable is the back line, though. Dupont is still captain, and he's alongside Jalibert at 9-10, so that combo remains. And the other area where it remains stable is Ntamack playing 12. I don't think you would say it was hugely successful last week, but it's only one game, and obviously Fabien Galtier is keen to see more of that, to see if he can potentially get more out of that combo, and one way to do that is to see them play together a bit more. So we'll see if it fires a little bit better this time. Fickou is still there at 13, Penaud still there at 14, Jaminet is still there at 15. So it's pretty stable. Jaminet was kicking pretty well last week. And Lebel is there on the left wing in place of Villiers, and he should get his first cap for France. Exciting to see, because he's one, I don't watch enough of the French teams to get too many insights into the young players before they hit the international scene, but he's one guy I have seen playing in the Champions Cup and looked really good at that level. So I'm excited to see him play for France. Replacements, Mauvaka, Gros, Bamba, Flamand, who played well last week, drops to the bench. Willemse likewise drops to the bench. Gros likewise drops to the bench. Luku and Dante, just the 2 back replacements. The rest are forwards. So that's kind of, you could say it's to match the physicality of the Georgians, but it was the same last week against Argentina with just the 2 backs. Speaking of the Georgians, it's a team that I don't get to see play that often. Did they last play against South Africa before the Lions tour? Was that their last game? I might have missed some Tier 2 European games, but that's the last time I've seen them play, certainly. The coach, Mashashvili, he got really sick on that tour, remember? He caught COVID-19 and almost died, I think. He was in intensive care for quite a while. So, yeah, the whole team had gone back to Europe, and he was stuck in a South African hospital. So good to see him back, and he's well. So that's very good news. And Georgia's ranks are boosted with a few guys who are back from injury. I think the hooker, Mamukashvili, experienced guy. I don't think he was available for the last game they played, at least in South Africa. So he's back. That's good news. Gigashvili is the loose head prop, and then Milikadze is the tight head. So 2 guys who play the rugby in France on the propping stocks, and then a very experienced hooker. So that's going to be one area where I guess the Georgians will try to turn the screws. But as I mentioned, maybe that's more of a stereotype these days. Not sure. Kudikoshvili, don't think he travelled to South Africa, but I could be wrong. I know Mikael Tadza did. I think he was making his return for that South African game. Really experienced guy, so it's kind of a nice combo to have a less experienced guy alongside a more senior guy to keep things as stable as you can. But to be fair, my favourite area of the Georgian team's not the props. It's their back row. I can't remember how many times I've seen Chukwueze, the 7, play. But Saginadze and Gorgadze, especially Gorgadze, the 6 and the 8, two of my favourite Georgians. Gorgadze, Beka Gorgadze, he's still pretty young, I think. 25? Maybe 28. I don't know. He played at the World Cup and was a star. Absolutely a star. Really good loose forward. Gets through a ton of tackles. Good run over the ball. Breaks tackles. He's back fit because he had a long-term injury layoff. I think during the Autumn Nations Cup last year. Was it ACL? I remember it was a really bad one that when you saw it happen on the field, you kind of recoiled because it was a bad injury. But he's back, so very good news. And I think generally, Saganadze is good as well, but the Georgian back row has been pretty good. In recent times, the backs is a bit of a mixture. Lobjanidze and Abjandadze are the same 19 combo. Those guys tend to play most of the games from what I've seen of Georgia, which is not a hell of a lot to be fair. Sharakadze is the veteran at 12. He's captain as always. Kevaladze is at 13. And then Todawa is back on the left wing. I don't think he went to South Africa, but the dude's he played in the 2011 World Cup, didn't he? I know you got France staying playing for South Africa. He's been around for a long time. But Todawa has likewise been around for a long time. 93 caps. And I can't imagine Georgia get as many games as some of the other teams. Maybe. I don't know. But 93 caps is a heck of... I hope he gets 100. Tabu Taz on the other wing. And then the youngster Niniashvili is there at fullback. And he's a bit of an excitement machine. Georgians tend to get known for their forwards, not their backs. But he's only 19 and he's already got 7 caps. So... maybe he's another guy who could be getting a few. The reserves, Chokoidze, Gogiashvili, and Japaridze are the front row replacements. Not as kind of heavy on the caps as the starting guys, which I guess makes sense. You got Jalagonia there. He's another good loose forward, so that's kind of good to see. But yeah, I'm certainly not as familiar with the Georgian squad as I would like to be. But hopefully part of that gets corrected this week. It's hard to say what you can say about the history between the sides because there's just not much. Argentina was beaten by France last week in a game which France would probably be not entirely happy with. It's a solid victory, but not fantastic. And Georgia, their game against Samoa didn't go ahead because Samoa didn't tour with the COVID concerns. So yeah, Georgia missed their second game against the Springboks with the COVID stuff. The coach got really sick. This game got cancelled. So, when I say this game, the Samoa game got cancelled. So, yeah, it'd be good to see these guys back in action, at least from my point of view. So, a lot of guys from this Georgian team who play in France, so they should be pretty familiar with many of these French players and vice versa. So, obviously the French are going to be big-time favourites, but I'm kind of really looking forward to it. If you look at the stats, man, the French love to offload. They play a pretty exciting brand of game. They don't maul a lot compared to some of the Tier 1 teams. Georgia, on the other hand, if they do get some possession, which they struggled with against South Africa, but they do it when they get some pill. So that will be interesting kind of battle. Maybe that's why you got a bit of extra weight with the likes of Antonio added to the side. The Georgian lineup, I think, is usually pretty solid, but it did struggle against Ireland last year. But, they've got Woki there from the French side, so he'll be looking to pinch a few if he can. I mentioned, the stereotype about the Georgian scrum. I honestly don't think, and I'm not the guy to be asking about it because I don't see all of Georgia's games, but it's maybe not as big as it used to be, the Georgian scrum. Like I said, I think I'm being more impressed from what limited amount I've seen with the Georgians as their loosies instead of the props. So the props are solid, very good. But I seem to remember they didn't really boss Fiji around at the last World Cup. And obviously South Africa is a tough team to be scrumming against. But it's going to be a fun one to watch either way. So predictions-wise, the rugby forecast algorithm has got it being close-ish with 16 points given to the French at home. Whereas the bookies are saying the French are going to romp home with a 40-point margin. So, we will have to see how things go. You guys let me know your thoughts. Do give us some more insights into the Georgian squad if you are familiar with the Georgian squad. Because as I mentioned many times, I'm certainly not a guy who gets to watch enough Georgian rugby. So not an expert. And likewise, I don't watch the top 14 enough. So I don't get to see a lot of those Georgian guys who are based in France. And for the French side, what do you guys reckon about all the changes? Woki in the second row. Big Antonio back, the continuation of the Jalibert and Ntamack 10-12 combo. How do you think it's going to go? But yeah, you guys take care, and I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.